Someone you love dies. The phone call comes. In the United States, the average bereavement leave is 3 days. On day 4, you are expected to be back. Functional, professional, and the grief stays in your body, with nowhere to go. For 300,000 years, death looked completely different. When someone died, the group stopped. Everything stopped. And what they did in that space changed what grief does to the body. 3 things, each one stranger than the last. And the last one explains why modern grief is making us physically sick. This is what death actually looked like for 300,000 years. Let's start at the moment of death itself. And who was there? For 300,000 years, no human died alone, not one. When death approached, the group gathered, immediately, completely. Christopher Boehm documented death practices across 48 hunter-gatherer societies. In all 48, abandoning the dying was not recorded, not once. We invented a system that separates the dying from everyone they love. After death, the body remained present. The group stayed close. In 1960, archaeologist Ralph Solecki excavated Shanidar Cave in Iraq. He found a Neanderthal burial site 60,000 years old. The body surrounded by flowers. 8 species of flowers, deliberately gathered, deliberately placed around the body. 60,000 years ago, Neanderthals grieved, with flowers, with intention. Across 300,000 years of burial sites, grave goods, objects placed with the dead. Grave goods mean one thing: they believe the relationship continued. They equip the dead for what came next, whatever that was. The modern funeral lasts about 30 minutes. Then everyone goes home. But the gathering was only the beginning. The mourning period came next. Every human culture in history has had a structured mourning period. Jewish Shiva 7 days. Victorian mourning up to 2 years. Islamic 40 days. Different lengths, different rituals, but always structured time and communal presence. During Shiva, the community comes to the mourner. For 7 days, they are never alone. Colin Murray Parkes published in The Lancet in 1964. Grief is a normal biological process. Grief is not an illness. It is a process, and it requires witness to complete. For days after a death, the group remained different. The loss was held collectively. Robin Dunbar at Oxford studied how social bonding intensifies during bereavement. Loss pulls groups closer. Grief, shared, strengthens the bonds of the living. They grieved together and came out more bonded than when they went in. Common elements: wailing was permitted, food was brought, normal duties suspended. Communal crying was not just allowed, it was expected, required even. Ad Vingerhoots at Tilburg University found crying in front of others triggers social support responses. Visible grief automatically triggers care from others. It is a social signal. When your ancestors grieved visibly, the group came closer automatically. When you cry at work, people look away. The signal fires into empty space. But the rituals weren't just about comfort. Something else was happening. The death rituals were doing something biological, something measurable, and scientists only started measuring it in the last 30 years. Death rituals were not just emotional, they were meaning-making machines. Around the fire, the dead person's story was told, over and over. Who were they? What did they do? What did they leave behind? George Bonanno at Columbia has studied grief resilience for over 25 years. Resilient grievers find meaning, not immediately by, but they find it. Meaning doesn't end the grief. It gives the grief somewhere to go. Your ancestors didn't try to forget the dead. They integrated them. Red ochre was placed in burials on every continent for 300,000 years. Placing the color of life with the dead was a statement. This is not the end. Near burial sites, cave art, the dead remembered in images that would last forever. Mary Frances O'Connor at University of Arizona studies what grief does to the brain. The grieving brain searches for the lost person, like a GPS rerouting after a road closes. Building those new pathways takes time. It cannot be rushed. The mourning period was the brain rerouting. The rituals held the person while it did. But there's one more thing the rituals did. Physically, in the body. And it is the thing that modern grief is missing most completely. Grief is not an emotion, it is a full-body biological crisis. When someone you love dies, your body goes into a biological emergency. Cortisol surges, inflammation rises, the immune system weakens, the heart rhythm changes. Wolfgang Strobe at Utrecht University published decades of research on grief and physical health. In the months after a significant loss, illness rates spike measurably. Broken heart syndrome is real. The heart literally changes shape under severe grief stress. The left ventricle balloons, it mimics a heart attack. Grief can stop a heart. Julianne Holt-Lundstad found grief combined with social isolation is particularly lethal. Grief alone, dangerous. Grief with community, survivable. The difference is measurable. Touch lowers cortisol. Presence reduces the threat response. Voices regulate the nervous system. Your ancestors activated every single one of those mechanisms, all at once, for days. Modern grief often activates none of them. The body is in crisis with no support. O'Connor found that social support during grief literally changes how the brain processes the loss. Without support, the threat response stays on. With support, the brain can begin to process. Your ancestors' mourning period gave the brain exactly what it needed to grieve completely. And then we invented the modern approach to death. 3 days of bereavement leave, then back to work. Bereavement leave was designed around productivity, not grief. Day 1, funeral. Day 2, paperwork. Day 3, trying to sleep. Day 4, your inbox. The grief is still there. The biology still running. You perform normal over it. Bonanno's research shows the average grief process takes 12 to 18 months to integrate. Ancient mourning, weeks to months of structured support. Modern expectation, days. We now have a diagnosis for grief that takes too long. Complicated grief disorder. But what if complicated grief is just grief without the community it needed? The grief isn't broken. The container we give it is. What your body needs when it grieves. People, time, permission, witness, stories. What modern grief gets. 3 days, isolation, performance of normal. If your grief has felt too big, too long, too much, it wasn't you. Grief takes as long as it takes. That is biology, not weakness. The presence of another person is not comfort, it is medicine. Tell the stories. Keep the person present. The brain needs to hear them. The mourning period was not tradition. It was the minimum time the brain needs. Your ancestors couldn't have imagined grieving alone. It would have seemed like madness. We didn't improve on how humans grieve. We just made it faster and private. Your ancestors stopped for the dead completely. They gave the grief what it needed: time, witness, community, meaning. And when they moved forward, the dead moved with them. In the stories, we built a world with no container for this. And we wonder why grief in the modern world feels like it never ends. It doesn't end because we never gave it what it needed to end. Your brain needs exactly what your ancestors' brain needed. They gave it that. We give it 3 days and a return to inbox. 60,000 years ago, someone placed flowers on a grave. Not because they were told to, because they understood something we've forgotten. Death doesn't ask for 3 days, And you were never designed to give it only 3. The flowers are still possible. The gathering is still possible. We didn't learn to grieve better. We just learned to do it faster and alone.